5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Here they go.
Liftoff.
What you're looking at right here is a balloon launch, a popular trend in the 1980s. But this isn't just any kind of balloon launch. This is the biggest one of all time, featuring 1.5 million balloons being released into the sky. The event started as a harmless publicity stunt that attempted to promote an American city and raise money for the United Way. But instead, this balloon launch quickly became a disaster. It was September 27, 1986, in Cleveland, Ohio. The United Way charity wanted to set a Guinness World Record for the most balloons released at a single time. This was a year after Disneyland in California had its own record-breaking balloon launch. Over 2,500 volunteers worked the night before and the morning of the launch to inflate more than 1 million balloons. The launch was held in the city's town square, where a net had been placed to catch all the balloons as volunteers below inflated them. By late morning, the weather radar detected a storm approaching that was expected to arrive in the mid-afternoon. So, instead of inflating and releasing 2 million balloons as originally intended, the United Way decided to settle for 1.5 million and have the launch earlier than planned. At approximately 1:50 p.m., the balloons were released into the sky, surrounding Cleveland's skyline with colorful latex bags of air. But this stunning sight didn't last for long. Instead of floating up into the atmosphere where they would have popped, the balloons clashed with the violent winds from the approaching storm. The balloons were already causing severe issues by crowding the sky, and the problems got even worse once they came back down to Earth. As they floated back down to the city, the balloons blocked roads, traffic, and even the local airport runway. It was absolute chaos. What was supposed to be a joyous and momentous event for Cleveland quickly turned into a catastrophe. And the problem wasn't just in the streets either. Lake Erie was covered with balloons. That made it nearly impossible for people to see anything but colorful latex. And on that day, visibility was needed more than ever. 2 fishermen had disappeared earlier in the day, and the Coast Guard was searching Lake Erie to find them. But due to the massive amount of balloons covering the water, they had to end the search. Helicopter pilots flying that day described it as a minefield. The Coast Guard didn't find the fishermen. Instead, their bodies washed up on shore several days later. Some people still believe that if the balloons hadn't been in the way, the Coast Guard would have been able to find the fishermen. The other side of Lake Erie saw the balloons too. Thousands of them were washing ashore on the beaches of Ontario, Canada for months after the disastrous event. Fortunately, the balloons eventually dissolved, but it took months. There's no telling what these balloons may have done to any curious animals trying to eat the latex. You might be watching this today wondering why anyone would want to do something like this, let alone an entire city. But looking at Cleveland's history, there might be a reason. In the 1960s and 70s, Cleveland suffered from economic disparity, crime, and poverty. It wasn't until the 1980s that it started to be known as the comeback city. Cleveland slowly improved its economy and its crime rates declined. This 1986 balloon launch can almost be seen as an attempt at a celebration for the city of Cleveland. Although the effort failed, the city can be proud of permanently having the record for the largest balloon launch ever. That's because the Guinness organization decided that, after Cleveland's disastrous event, it would no longer accept balloon releases for a Guinness World Records title.
I still think they have the record. Back to you, Chuck.